Welcome to the Tipsy Theology podcast, where we believe it's okay to date a non-Christian, as long as you try to convert them. No quite.
What? It's what?
How are you?
Good.
That's good. We're into it now.
Oh, we're in the podcast.
We're into the podcast.
The podcast has started. Okay.
It was so fluid, you didn't even know we got into it.
Yeah. No, sometimes I'm just not paying attention. I'm in my own little
Well, to be fair, I didn't warn you. So
Christian world in my brain where everything is perfect.
this little bubble you got built
Yeah.
up. Well, to be fair to you, I didn't tell you.
That's true. There was no preparation for this at all.
Yeah, we just kind of went for it.
Paul was like, you know what, Noah, just come in for this podcast and I'm going to ask you all these questions. And by the end of it, you'll have your identity.
Yeah, hopefully. But to give you a little bit of some, you're like a nearly full-time missionary.
I wouldn't say nearly full-time either. I have this weird relationship.
Nearly part-time?
Nearly part-time. I have this weird relationship with the word missionary.
Why is that?
The word missionary, it kind of implies a lot, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Not wrong.
when you hear missionary, you think about a person who has dedicated their life to a particular country or a people
Right.
group.
We think of like
somebody-
international, lifelong, like focused mission work.
Yeah, and I am like the aspiring missionary because I'm not, I don't have a specific people group that I'm working with full time, where I'm taking sabbaticals and, all this other stuff that, the term missionary implies. So, yeah, I wouldn't know what to call myself, but people will just keep, they attach that term to me and my identity. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, we'll talk more about that for sure, because I want to hear more about, who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you?
Who am I?
But we also, for those who are listening, we have this cool little like globe decanter I got for my birthday. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it has all the countries on it, minus Antarctica at the bottom. They kind of left them out.
Yeah, they did. But, I begged Paul. To bring this because I felt like it matched the topic of choice for today.
It did.
I mean, who doesn't want a globe, on their desk?
And there's a nice little sailing ship in there.
Yeah,
Well, that's what's cool. I think I'm like afraid because I was like, okay, how do I pack this so it stays intact? 'Cause I don't want it to break. I like it.
Well, I wouldn't want it to break either, but,
You wanted it to break.
See, I'm just secretly like
break it. But anyway, we got our first shot up. Cooper's Mark.
Okay.
This is I've never actually tried this before. I made it in a drink once, but I couldn't really get a good like taste of it. So this is going to be an interesting one. But this is your bourbon whiskey.
Oh, it's already poured. Look at that.
Cheers to you.
Wow. Cheers. Wow. That's good.
It's kind of like a mix. So the guy who I bought it from, he said it's kind of what did he say? I wish I could remember what he said. It's like a mix between two. It's actually not too bad. I actually kind of like it. It's definitely like really strong. It's got, it's very, very, very strong.
Yeah.
I was expecting more of like a Maker's Mark flavor from it. I think because it's called Cooper's Mark. But it's definitely like, tastes more powerful than that initial hit.
Yeah. No, the hit, like it got me, and then the flavor came, and that was what made the difference for me in that little shot. Yeah.
It's kind of nice. That's not too bad. I actually kind of enjoy that. Right on. But hey, now that we're here, actually, what are your thoughts on alcohol now that you've had it first shot? What do you think about it?
So I actually have an interesting backstory to my first time having a glass of alcohol, and it was definitely not intentional. I got to a point in my life where I was like, alcohol is not wrong, but I'm not really interested in drinking it because I never have, and I'm going to see how long I can go without having a drink of alcohol. So I had a friend who really really liked to go to bars and drink socially with me. We'd have like a couple drinks or something, but I would have, obviously version stuff. But we went one time, and this one drink that I got, it was like a mocktail. And I was like, man, this is so good. Like, I love this drink. So I asked the person if I could have another one. So he told somebody else to make it, but they made it like a double shot of gin.
Oh, they didn't know it was supposed to be a virgin.
Yeah. They added like a double shot of gin, and like I drank it, and I was like, what is this? Like, why does this taste so weird? And I gave it to my friend. He's like, you don't know what alcohol tastes like. And that was my first time. And, after that, I just started drinking at that point, because I was like, it's no point anymore. My record is broken. I'm 23 years old.
Was at that point, it was not like actual, like, it wasn't a conviction. It was more of like, I've got a streak.
Yeah, I've got a streak of not drinking, and I wanted to keep it, but after it was broken, it was like, it's okay. It's okay. And so
let's overindulge.
Yeah, let's get drunk. No, I'm joking.
We get tipsy on this show. So wait, so was there what was it like for you growing up? Was there like an issue with that? Like, was it frowned upon, or was it just like no one cares? Like, what was that for you growing up?
Yeah, so that's a good question. When I was a kid, I was raised in a fundamental Baptist church.
Okay.
And everything, like, it seemed like everything in the world was a sin. Like, you couldn't go to the movies, you couldn't listen to music because music was of the devil.
Yeah.
You couldn't drink alcohol, you couldn't get tattoos. I mean, if you drank alcohol, like I literally saw them like carry out a person with tattoos one time that walked in. It was intense. Yeah. It was very intense. And
those are the kind of people.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy.
Yeah. So I was taught that all that stuff was wrong. And then eventually we all got sick of it because my mom, she would smuggle like music, like for us,
And what makes me laugh at that too? It's just the idea of like, so you do missions work, and I know it's like, especially in like missionaries that I know that have done work in like third world countries, there's like, oh, you smuggle Bibles in. And she's like the missionary for you guys with music.
It's true.
She's like, here's a Coldplay album.
No, it wasn't that extreme, okay? Coldplay is like extreme.
Oh, so just like
yeah. So you have to think more along the lines of like Mark Schultz, and Chris Rice. You guys remember?
Yeah.
What if cartoons got saved? Do you guys remember that song?
This is a song he wrote about lemonade. So my brother Thomas used to listen to that song a lot.
It was a great song,
He used to play Age of Empires and listen to Lemonade. That was his day.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, so basically what I'm trying to say is that alcohol was like a no-no, growing up until my family kind of left the church. My mom specifically took us out of the church because, she was sick of it. The legalism was really toxic, and
it'll burn you out.
It burned her out, and it burned us out, and she took us out. And I think that was simultaneously a good decision and a bad decision, because it was no longer like legalistic. We could listen to music then, and
how did you? Was your dad on board with that?
No, he wasn't. That's what made it very difficult. But
okay,
eventually, God brought me to a place where I realized that, that I needed Him in my life, because without Him, I didn't have an identity. I didn't have a concept of like that there's somebody who loves me, that there's somebody who has pursued me and who wants to use my life for something glorious, So He brought me back to church. And that's when I kind of like unlearned all of the, like God will hate you if you do this and if you do that. And more so God does love you, and He does see you, with love and as His creation, and He's calling to each of us,
Did you say you switched like a AG church afterwards? Or which one did? Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
Assembly of God, for people who don't know the acronym.
Yeah, it was. So Assemblies of God is typically very, very charismatic church, but ours was very tame. Just imagine
which is probably better coming from like a very strict like Baptist background it's probably nicer transition like into
yeah. No holy rollers or anything like that.
you don't want to jump from like one extreme to another extreme. You're like, oh my gosh.
Right. I don't know if I would have been ready for that. So God brought me there, and I, made a new church family, and
Mhm.
and then I learned that alcohol is it's not wrong to drink it. Like it's biblically there's no argument for that. The only argument we have against alcohol is the kind of like the drunken spirit. Like
Yeah.
getting drunk is mentioned as simple, but Jesus drank wine, and other people in the Bible drank wine, and it was only mentioned as wrong when somebody got drunk, or had a drunken spirit.
Yeah.
So, yep. So now I'm like, it's
Yeah.
okay, but I feel like when you work in ministry, you have to kind of look and see, okay, are these people that I'm working with, is it good for me to be drinking while I'm working with a specific people group? And that's kind of like that kind of leads into like where I've been working for the last 6 months. And
Yeah.
so for those of you who don't know me, I have worked in Central Asia for the last 6 months, and that is a place in the world that that came out of the Soviet Union. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, all these countries gained their freedom, and alcoholism is a huge problem there. So for countries like that, when you work in ministry there, it's actually advisable not to drink alcohol, not to engage in that lifestyle, because you want to be the best possible example you can be for those people.
Mm-hmm.
So
cheers to that.
Oh, here we go, round 2.
Yes, that was Jameson. Much smoother, a lot softer.
I don't know about that.
What?
That one had more of like a sour bite to it.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe I just don't know how to.
I mean, it's your taste buds. It's like
It is. We all have.
I just taste something different. That's interesting. Wow. Sorry, that's an
Kinda made
illegal
my eyes
word.
water a little bit. That one.
Really?
Yeah.
So that one was harsher than the Cooper's Mark?
Yeah. The
Really?
last one it had like a strong bite in the beginning, but it was like more flavor. And this one was like bite all the way bite all the way through and flavor. So, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that before. I usually consider Jameson as like the least bite. But
Well,
hey,
maybe I'm
different
just
strokes,
lightweight,
different
and that's how
folks.
it is,
different strokes, different folks. Yeah, so was that difficult for you then to go to a place where it's advisable to not drink and be like, all right, let's abstain here?
So
Not that saying like, oh, you were addicted and you're like, I need a drink, but more like just kind of force of habit or anything like that. Where it's like,
no.
because I feel like there's times where it's like, especially if I'm out with people, I don't really think about it, and it's like, oh yeah, they just hand me something. It's like, oh cool.
Yeah, so I didn't have any problem with that. I didn't drink frequently enough to have like a habit for drinking.
Okay.
And what helps in that is that alcohol is really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's
Telling us.
expensive because it's always in high demand, because people love alcohol, generally speaking. So I didn't really indulge myself in drinking alcohol, even after the point where I was like, okay, drinking is okay.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I abstained from it completely, and that wasn't really a huge issue for me.
That's cool. No, that's good. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, that's good. Because I know for me, it would definitely be strange to be like, oh yeah, say no to this now. It'd have to be a conscious thought, because I'm so used to just saying yes.
Yeah. I understand that.
Especially like someone's offering you something, it's like, oh yeah, cool, sounds good.
So
yeah,
that
would mess with me.
That reminds me, there was one time when I had a little break in between, like it was like the end of my 4th month out there. I had to go out of the country because it was all about like a visa thing.
Yeah.
So my visa had expired. I had to go out of the country and then come back in. While I was out, I took the opportunity to travel to Tbilisi, which is the capital of a country called Georgia, for those of you who don't know. And they are famous for the wine that they make. Like, they're world famous. And I wasn't planning on trying any of the wine while I was there, because I actually had one of the ministry team members with me. And we went to an old historical city. I can't pronounce the name because it's just too difficult. We went to it was like the first capital of Georgia. And we went there, and there was all these little shops with a bunch of little trinkets and antiques and cool stuff that they were selling. And we went to this one shop, and this guy brought us back there, and he showed us like his winery. And it was really cool. And then he poured a glass. He didn't even ask me. He just poured a glass, and he's like, "Here, try this." And I was like, "Okay, I'll make an exception because I didn't ask for this, but if he's offering it to me, from out of his hospitality, then yes, I'll accept it and not, drink
You don't want to be super rude about it or anything.
Yeah. So that's the only exception to I didn't drink while I was out there,
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was great wine though. I will say.
I'm sure it's world famous.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I'm glad you got to try it. That's awesome.
For sure.
And I get to try one of my hometown favorites.
All right.
The old Seven Bros.
That one's not bad.
Wow. Wow.
It's not bad. I am generally a fan of gin.
Just gotta be a hater on everything, huh?
I'm a hard man to please. So, that's actually, it's not true. It's completely opposite with me.
That makes it worse now.
Yeah, I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but
So this is the old Seven Brothers.
it wasn't bad.
What didn't you like?
I don't know. I don't feel like I've gotten to a point where I can say, this is what I didn't like about this alcoholic beverage.
Okay.
Because I haven't had enough alcohol or tried enough brands to really say oh, this one was more sour or this one was more fruity. Well, you can tell when something's fruity, right? But I don't know. I don't know all the terminology, so.
Huh, that's interesting. Huh. Well, my mind's a little blown. You're the only one I've ever heard that didn't like it.
It's not that I didn't like it.
Annie
just said
dreams
it was not
about
bad.
it at night. That's
Listen, I do really like gin.
I'm saying that my feelings are
That's all
hurt.
I'm gonna
Whatever.
I like gin. I do. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
I'm hurt. I'm hurt. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing.
Yeah.
I really don't care.
I'll buy you dinner after this. How about that? And that'll make up
Perfect.
for it.
We're watching a Nicolas Cage movie later. I don't. Nothing can hurt me. Oh man. Well, hey. Anyway, we got our main brew today, which is another hometown classic, Great Lakes Brew. We had another Great Lakes earlier, but you said you're a lager fan. This is the Eliot Ness Amber Lager.
I've never had ambers before, so this is a first for me.
So here's another thing to disappoint you.
Another thing oh man, this stuff sucks.
Just hurting my feelings left and right here. But let me pour it for you. It's the least I can do. Oops.
Wow, this is fancy, guys. Having a glass of beer poured for me.
There you go.
That looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I'm worried for you to try it. He's just gonna trash it.
If it's trashy, I'll pretend it's not this time. How about that?
Yeah, just lie to me.
Just lie to you. Okay.
But if you're telling the truth, let me know you're telling the truth.
Amazing.
I know, right? Well, at least we have this decanter for you.
Yes.
Maybe that'll appease you slightly. Hey, cheers to you. It's time.
Are we drinking the whole thing right now, or are we?
You gotta chug it. No,
No.
You sip it. You sip it.
Okay.
We got a whole podcast to drink through it.
You're right. Now that is good.
There it is. Are you lying?
That's the best part about it. You don't know if I am or not because I said I would, right?
I asked you to tell me you were telling the truth if you weren't lying.
I always lie.
Perfect.
So work that one out in your head.
I've already tried.
Is it that I'm lying right now? You never know.
Well, anyway, so you were telling us a little bit about some of your background, but so with missions, what brought you to that place? We're gonna start with a heavy hitter right now.
Wow. So the story behind why I went into missions, or like
Yeah.
why I aspire to be a missionary.
So I'll preface it with this before you jump into
Yeah.
it, and feel free to jump in on this. So it's like when we think about missions work, I think it's like I don't think it's a lost concept to anybody.
Yeah.
Like at first everyone's like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're
Sure.
someone who goes somewhere else. Typically, when we say missionary, we think of someone in like goes to like a third world country
Yeah.
or somewhere outside of America. I feel like it's typically developing countries that people go to, and they go and they teach the word of God. Like, so with that, it's like, yeah. So what brought you? Yeah, what led you to like this is what I want to do with my life?
Yeah. So my story, the beginning of that desire came when I was a young Christian. I think I was probably 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had just gotten back into church, and I was, excuse me, and I was, you know, involved in everything. I involved myself in everything I possibly could.
Hmm.
You know, I joined the young adult group because I was 18 finally, and
Yeah.
you know, we were going through Matthew, and I was at home, and I was on the phone with my old girlfriend, and you know, I was reading through Matthew. No, I'm sorry, it was Acts, and it was Acts chapter 1 because I had just started reading that after finishing Matthew. And in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, it's the second part of the verse there. It talks about, you know, going out and baptizing, like, you know, everything in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, you know, going and spreading the word to the entire world. And I remember reading that and thinking, why are we here? Like, why? Like, not like as in like a what is the meaning of the universe sort of thing. Okay, we're not getting into that.
You read
today.
it like,
Yeah, yeah.
What is life?
What is the meaning of life? No, no, that's not what I mean when I say that. I mean, like, my question was at the time, like, why are so many Christians here in America just living in like as kings and queens? You know, when our call, you know, our direct call is to go into the entire world and to preach the gospel to every creature, you
Mhm.
know, and baptize them, you know, in the name of Father and Son and Holy Spirit, all that.
Mhm.
You know, like, why are we not doing this? Like, why aren't we all like living in discomfort, you know, like in some third world country, and, you know, and preaching the salvation of Christ to people who have never heard it before? And it took me a while to understand that, you know, we all have our own callings in life. You know,
Yeah.
some people, they work in business and they make a lot of money, and that's not a problem. But God gives the people like those preferences or those callings, and it is so that, you know, each cog in the church is rotating. You know, we're all working together for the building of the kingdom. So people who make a lot of money and work in business here in America and live in comfort, like, it's given to them, you know, because God has entrusted them with that, you know, and they can support people who live like me, you know, or who want to live like me, and or who want to live like actual missionaries. I shouldn't even say like, live like me because I'm not there yet. You know?
Yeah, you sleep in a bed still, so
Yeah, right. I'm not sleeping in the dirt yet, so yeah.
I'm probably
Soon,
closer
you
to
know,
that.
You're right. No. Paul sleeps on the floor. For some reason, he let me have his queen size bed while I'm visiting him down here in Florida.
I enjoy the floor more.
Yeah. You know,
The bed
he
is
enjoys
junk
the
food.
floor. And I didn't argue with him because, you know, queen size bed all to myself, you know, that's not something I've had for a while. So, you know, so yeah, so that reading that verse was the turning point for me, like the one thing that really stood out to me in my entire early Christian walk. When I really became a Christian when I was 17. That's when I really dedicated my life to the Lord. You know, that's when I learned who He was and how He saw all of us. And you know, after reading that verse, I knew I wanted to do missions with my life. You know, because I was 18, I already had a plan for college. I wanted to study psychology and become a counselor, you know,
Yeah.
counseling psychologist, because I wanted to help people, you know, because my family had been through so much trauma. A lot of it had to do with psychology, and, you know, so I wanted to help people, you know, who had gone through things that I had gone through, which wasn't a bad thing. But after reading that verse, like, my drive became merged with that. Like it became like, I'm going to get a master's in counseling and then I'm going to go into the mission field and use my master's in counseling to like counsel people and, do things that way. Well, after graduating my fourth year with a bachelor's in psychology, I realized that, I probably wouldn't be a very good counselor, because I like helping friends out. But, when I think about the actual career of just letting people pour out everything before you,
Yeah.
and there's so much emotion, there's so much trauma, there's so much, that would be a lot for me, I think, to handle, at least at this current point in my life. I don't feel like I'm prepared for that kind of work. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to work towards going into the mission field. And then I found an opportunity working with a pastor that I had met through a university sponsored trip to Central Asia. And he asked me to come back out and spend, like a year there. So I decided to go out and spend half a year. And yeah, so that's kind of any questions with that or?
Yeah, what? No. No, so I'm curious too. I'm curious about it because you mentioned it a few times about comfort and discomfort.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen you wear shirts that say "seek discomfort,"
Yeah.
which I guess on a front side I'm not totally against either. I think we need to challenge ourselves, but I was interested because you put that as part of kind of your journey to getting to being a missionary. So like, what does that mean?
Seeking discomfort.
Yeah.
So
I'll preface it with this as well. So you said that, like, why are we living here in comfort when we should be out, in other, the far parts of the world in discomfort? It's like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? How does that play a role in it?
That thought came to me because when you think about the unreached populations of the world, and there are a lot, there are over 6,000 unreached people groups.
Sure.
And I think the statistic, I don't know if it's changed within the last year, but when I checked last year, it was, I think, 0.38% of missionaries, 0.38% of missionaries travel to the unreached people groups of the world. That's less than 0.5% of the missionaries we have. And none of them are going, and none of the other missionaries are going to those 6,000 unreached people groups.
Sure.
Which is a lot. There's a lot of people that are unreached.
Yeah.
And I think I was so harsh when I first learned that it's kind of harsh within myself and kind of I don't know, I had this idea of why aren't we going there? Maybe it's because we want to be in comfort and maybe that's a problem. Maybe seeking comfort.
What does comfort mean?
Yeah.
Let me start with that.
Comfort means just seeking. So I refer to America generally as a rat race. And because, everybody is trying to improve their lives, materially, usually, you don't really find a lot of people that are not trying to do that,
Sure.
Unless they have no drive towards that, and I think that, seeking comfort would mean just seeking to become more materially successful and to be more live more comfortably. Not have the challenges that you would have in, maybe a third world country or a place where you don't have the opportunity to move up on the social ladder or the economic ladder, I should say, So I wouldn't say that, most people are like that here in America, in the sense of they're just looking for an economic, for just economic success, because I know a lot of people here who are really great and they have great pursuits and ambitions and, and they have a heart for the Lord, I just think that, generally speaking, when you look at the world without Christ, what you find is people who are trying to improve their lives, their families' lives, economically, socially, that's kind of the rat race, even when you go to other countries, people without Jesus, they think that, if I could only go to America, if I could only go to the west, I will be rich, my family will be rich, and I won't have to worry about anything anymore. That is the seeking comfort that I'm talking about. Whereas seeking discomfort for me, if you guys don't know the motto yet, it actually comes from a YouTube channel called Yes Theory. And they promote this idea of seeking discomfort and like making risky choices, and not like in a dumb sense, but in a way that, in a way that promotes growth. So seeking discomfort for me, though, what it means is kind of going against the grain, and not like, for me, it's not about seeking material growth. It's not about being rich. For me, like, I don't have a desire to be rich. I don't have a desire to have a big house, or, like a fancy car, or, any of those things in life. And none of those desires are bad. You can have those desires. I'm just saying, like, for me, seeking discomfort comes above that. And it goes to, like, I want to be the guy that goes to the people who are not reached with the gospel. I want to go to because if no one else is going to go, then I want to go,
Mm.
And that's kind of like my drive behind all of that.
That's cool. Yeah. So it's really just forget running water.
Single tear goes down my cheek. If you guys
Yeah, actually, when he came over to my house, he was washing his hands. He's like, "This is incredible. I've never seen such technology."
I felt like Gollum, my precious,
Right. He was washing his hands for hours, just turning the faucet on and off.
Yeah, it was like coming into a new world. No.
You're right. It's a whole new world,
That's funny.
So what stories do you have for us?
Oh man, what
I'm sure you got something good. Even if it's not good. Like, so I mean, it could be as exciting or as boring. I mean, I've heard from missionaries, I've heard crazy stories. Like,
yeah,
one of the guys I know, I don't remember where they were missionaries at. I've heard stories about, like, the church that they were in, they were taking communion one time and someone snuck in and put like poison in the communion cups, and they drank it and everyone was fine. And the guy,
oh my gosh,
the guy who poisoned him was like, "What the heck? Like, who is this God?" It's like stories like that insane. But I know there's other stories where it's just like, you watch TV all day, because you're living a long-term life there.
Yeah,
which I think is different from, and I'm more in favor of that than I am for, like, short-term missions work. I'm not a huge fan of it. I understand the point of it, but yeah.
Okay.
So with that, it's like, what does that look like for you then?
Okay, so you want to hear the stories first, or do you want to hear my opinion on short-term missions?
I know I just threw a grenade into the convo. Let's we don't need to let's talk about short-term missions. Everyone's fuming now.
Okay, yeah. Everybody's angry.
Everyone who's been on a short-term mission trip, they're like, "What the heck?"
Hey, I haven't said what I thought yet, so if you're angry already,
yeah, right, just wait.
Let's just take that before the Lord right now.
But I will say, I've never technically been on like a short-term mission trip, unless you count like helping like a poor community for like 2 days, because like we did like a game or festival or outreach for them kind of thing. Like VBS, I guess you could call that a short-term outreach.
So my opinion is probably going to be very unpopular. Okay. And more people are kind of jumping on board with these ideas as well, but the majority still kind of hold to the old ideas about short-term missions. To be honest with you, I don't even like the idea of calling them missions trips, because it really, what it does is it takes the actual idea of mission and the word mission and the term missionary, and it waters it down to something that is basic and something that is not very helpful at all in determining, the real work that's being done, in the world. So short-term missions, why do I think that? So whenever you do short-term mission trips, the general thing that happens is you go to a country, there's already an established ministry there. There's almost always already an established ministry there, an established church, some pastor that you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
and what is it? You're either hugging people on the street and just telling them that Jesus loves them, depending on if they can understand you or not.
Sure.
You're helping to set up for a conference, but you're not participating unless you speak the language.
Mm.
You're painting a church or you're building a church, which can be done by the local population, which is statistically is very damaging, to for short-term missions groups to go in and build churches. You're taking
those
money
jobs
out
away
of
from them.
Yeah, you're taking jobs away
Yeah.
from people. You're not. You're what I think about it is, it's creating this idea of we need the Western church to be successful.
Mm.
It's creating this idea of I depend on these Americans or whatever country you come from for finances or for building this church or for getting these things done or for getting this car or for, whatever it is there. And I've seen it firsthand as well. I can kind of mention a story here and, kind of share this with you. There was a trip I went on I won't say the country, but there was a group of people in this country, all over, the southeast portion of this country, who loved the missionary that I was working with.
Mm.
They had a long relationship. It was 20-something years, 30 years that this person had been going to these countries for months at a time, sometimes years at a time. And when we went with them, what I witnessed was they treated this person, they treated us as if we were gods. I'd never seen anything like it before, and and it came down to a point where they were talking about their needs, and they're like, hey, we need money for this. And our leader's like, well, I'm not always going to be here. Who do you think your provider is? And they're like, you're our provider. And that just stopped everything, and my heart kind of broke a little bit because I'm thinking we're teaching these people that we are their providers. They're no longer relying on God for the things that they need. They're no longer, they're not getting the point of Jesus. Jesus isn't a person who comes and fixes all of your financial needs. I wouldn't say that that's his direct, mission in your life. Jesus is someone who comes to align your heart with his own, and when you get saved, that's the process of sanctification. God begins to turn your heart and align your heart with his. And then you begin to look for him for everything that you need. Lord, I need, this thing is going on in my life. Your will be done. This is what I'm struggling with. This is my financial need right now, but I know that you're there and I can hope in you. And, wow, this is getting deep.
It's all right.
So that's kind of the effect that I've seen in short-term missions. Even this was kind of half and half. It was short-term, long-term sort of deal. But, when we participate in, doing things that kind of create this need for ourselves, the focus is no longer on Christ and God as the provider. The focus then becomes us, and we are the ones that are saving them. We are the ones that are improving their lives, and so
yeah, and that's kind of where I've gotten to it as well, with especially with short terms. It's you've shared some stuff that shows it can be somewhat damaging in some ways. Yeah, but I think it's for us to recognize where it does more for. I think even Trey said this on a previous episode, and it's it does more for the people that went on it than it did for the people that they went to. Yeah, It's for you being the person that went through the trouble of, raising the funds to go, and then going and, maybe even building some buildings or painting a church or whatever it is, or just standing on a street corner yelling at people in a foreign language. Yeah. Like maybe that's what you did, but that's more beneficial for you than it is for them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think if we recognize it in that way, I
Mhm.
think it would change what it is, or maybe even our view on it a little bit.
Yeah,
But what do you think about that?
yeah. I actually
That statement.
I have a solution. I
Mm.
have. And
Get
this
rid of
is-
it.
This is this is a in the work sort of thing right
Oh,
now.
okay.
So don't hate me if you think that I'm theologically inaccurate or just not it's not going to work or whatever. But I think that short-term missions should be rebranded as international ministerial. Oh, I forgot it. International ministerial immersion trips.
Why do the words have to be longer?
It has to be longer because it paints a different picture, doesn't it? I mean, think about that. International ministerial immersion trips.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's no longer the idea isn't any longer that you're a missionary now, that you're going on the short-term trip.
Sure.
The idea is I'm going to this country and I'm experiencing the ministry of Christ in another country from another people, and I'm participating in some way,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm experiencing this and deciding, hey, is this country the country that God is calling me to?
Mm.
And my fun little acronym, the International Ministerial Immersion Trips, I if you shorten it so it's like first letters, it's I might, I might be a full-time missionary to this country.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
I feel like we could just call it just like a vacation with extra steps.
vacation with extra steps. So yeah, so like that's kind of like the name solution there.
Okay.
And the other solution is to let it be a cultural ministerial immersion kind of trip.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make the main purpose that you're going on this trip that an idea of I'm going to help these people. You're not you might be assisting and if you're building a church,
Sure.
like it helps in the short term, but in the
Yeah.
long term, it's damaging to a country, right?
Yeah.
But don't make the idea about you because it's not about you. It's not about you going. It's not about you being, a valuable asset to the people that work in third world countries that are native there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about that. It's about going and experiencing a culture and God's people within that culture in that country and deciding, God, are you calling me here?
Mm.
Are you calling me to work with these people, to learn their language, to adopt their culture, to just surrender basically my life to this work to reach people for your glory? And that's why I think it's so important to change the terminology that we use for short-term trips because, like when you get rid of all of the stuff that says, hey, look at me and look at what I'm doing, and the children that I, have pictures with, there's definitely like a,
it's true. I feel like if you start to paint it in that light, you probably have less people going on it too. Maybe. I don't know. That makes I kind of appreciate that a little bit more too. It's like, let's be more intentional, a little more honest about what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you do that, when you're honest about what it is,
yeah,
you can enjoy it so much more.
It's true. That's very true. Because you recognize it for what it is.
Exactly. And so I've been on short-term trips and I did call them mission trips at the time, but after going and being there for 6 months and and it wasn't like a 6 months of like every day was like a vacation, cool, like I'm going snowboarding and, horseback riding and everything like that. It wasn't like that, When you go long term, you are living with the people. You are learning the language. You are, you're learning the culture. You are, you're learning how you are just another cog in the kingdom. You're not, like it's a blessing for people to have Americans come and live with them and work long term. It is. And I'm not trying to diminish that part of it, but I'm just trying to take the focus off of us, so yeah.
Well, I think the blessing you can view that as is, the way that, people maybe think about the U.S. in other cultures sometimes. not to say that's a good or bad thing, but it's like, yeah, there is like a sense of like, oh, like that's the dream for some people.
Yeah.
And so when you're over there helping them, or anyone's over there helping them from a Western country, that could be like a privilege for them. Maybe that's a benefit. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely, I appreciate you saying that earlier too. I definitely agree, and I think that, you know, it's elevating that culture, and I think that's the important thing too. So it's not that we're just trying to impose our ideas and stuff onto them, but it's like
Yeah.
we want you guys to develop your own culture, your own identity.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, you know, when like there were so many times when I was out there where I was like, man, because I don't know Russian fluently.
Mm.
That's the language they speak out there in Central Asia, by the way, if you don't know. Because I don't speak Russian fluently in this particular circumstance, I am useless to the ministry. I'm just this American guy that's it's cool that I'm there because I'm American. I'm in like this
Yeah.
country no one's ever heard of, you know?
Sure.
But you know that's as far as it goes. And that
Mm.
there were a lot of times out there where I was like, man, like I had to like be humbled by God because I was like, man, I need to be more. Like I need to do more. Like I need to make myself more valuable. But God was like, no, like just look at how much this ministry functions well on its own, you know, without
Yeah.
you know, and that's the reality that, you know, we all need that kind of reality check when we go into missions. It's not going to be a thing like where like you're the main centerpiece.
Sure.
You know, you're not going to be up there every Sunday preaching, you know, for these people unless you become an actual pastor in an actual church, you know.
Yeah.
Which you could do, I guess, if you learned the language fluently enough to preach.
Be able to teach.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of time.
What would you say? What are things that has changed your theology now that you have more experience, like doing missions work?
Something that's changed my theology.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't know. I feel like there could be a lot.
I'm sure there's things that like theologically we hold very theoretically. You know, it's like, oh, in theory, like that's what I would do probably in that situation, or this is what I think in theory. And then we experience reality, and it's like, oh wow, that changes something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think a good example would be South Asia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been to South Asia. I spent a month there, a month and a half, or like a month and a week, something like that. And while I was there, I won't say the country again, just for
Yeah, you're good.
you know, that for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was there in South Asia, you know, I was just so surprised at the amount of spirituality in South Asia, you know, because here in America, we have all these distractions. You know, we have technology, we have, you know, all the stuff, television and media and science to kind of distract us and tell us that there is no real spiritual like stuff going on. We don't really see it that much here in America. I mean,
Sure.
You know, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it's
not public. It's not public,
Yeah.
but it's not popular.
It's not widespread like it is in South Asia. While I was there, you know, there were a lot of instances where I encountered, you know, just really bizarre things. I mean, there was a lot of services where I'd never seen a truly charismatic service before until I went to South Asia, you know, where people were yelling in tongues and rolling on the floor, you know, with the Slain the Spirit thing, and people falling over, and some people looking like they're just paralyzed on the floor, and people crying and sobbing and laughing, and, you know, like,
like, get me out of here.
Yeah. For me, that was a huge shock, you know, because you know, and people getting healed as well. That's something I should mention too, because there were people that were healed during services, which was really fantastic just to be able to be there for that.
I feel like each of those is probably like a whole episode on its own.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and we often have this thing like in the West where we kind of scoff at such ideas, you know, like we because there are fakers out there. We know that there are, you know, I'm not naming any names right now, but you know, there are definitely some false teachers and false preachers out there that fake healings, that they fake the Slain in the Spirit thing, they fake the tongues thing, but
yeah,
you know, and there are people out there that do it too. But out there, you're more likely to see something real. And I have a really good example, something a little more bizarre, but something a little different than
Yeah.
maybe what you've heard before.
Yeah.
There was a time where we visited an orphanage in a very unheard of village.
Mm.
It was in the middle of nowhere, it felt like, and in this village or town or whatever you want to call it, this orphanage was ran by two Christians,
Mhm.
and one guy from the West and one person who was more native to the region. Um, and they had about 50, 60 kids that they were taking care of. This country is very sad and in a lot of ways in how they deal with child deformities,
Mm.
and when babies are born, or if they're born a woman, sometimes, like if they're born with a deformity, what they do, this is a confirmed thing that we've heard, is the nurses of the hospital
Yeah.
will tell the woman that their baby was a girl and that it was dead on birth, but even if it's not dead, even if it's a boy,
Mm.
they'll tell them that their child died, and they literally throw them in a dumpster
Wow.
in the back of the hospital, like outside the back of the hospital.
Dang.
And like that's how worthless life is in this country. And it's just so like heart wrenching. I'd never heard anything like that before.
Mm.
Just how meaningless life must be, for these people, that teach that has meaning.
Mm.
They in this country, they teach that, all life is sacred, but then they turn around and they treat life like this, you
Mm.
know. Well, a lot of those babies were rescued by these people. They would rescue babies that were thrown away.
Mhm.
They'd rescue, little girls that had been raped and that who were going to be murdered, because when you're raped, when you lose your
Mm.
virginity, you can be honor killed.
Mm.
You can, just all these awful things. So they would rescue these children,
Wow.
and raise them, and this is such a beautiful thing. And they teach them in the ways of the word and the gospel, and teach them about Jesus. And I just loved it. And every day they have a daily schedule. I love it. And they they have worship in the morning, and they have worship at night, and they have time in the word together. And it was amazing to see while I was there. Well, while we were there, we actually put on a show for them.
Mm.
One of the nights that we were there, we put on a kind of, it was like a, how do I describe it?
Like a sketch or
Like, it
something?
was like a
Yeah.
sketch, yeah. So
Yeah.
like the sketch was based around like the story of like this donkey who, uh, he was gray, and he found a magic wishing cave where he went in and he could change his color. So he went in and I wish I'm black. And then he would come out and he's like, there are other two characters who like try to like argue with each other about which is
Mm.
better.
Mm.
And, he'd go back in and change his color again, and then change his color again. And there's one time where he just couldn't decide, and then he came out a zebra, and the cave
Mm.
collapsed, and he couldn't change it again,
Oh,
you
wow.
know? And the whole moral of the story was that, like, when we choose Christ, we don't go back.
Mm.
It's about like not going back, and, not turning back, because, Christ is it,
Yeah.
and, so we're talking about this moral at the end of the sketch, and the government shows up, like the government officials, because they show up often to try to harass.
This was not part of the sketch.
Yeah, yeah. This was not part of the sketch. They showed up in vehicles outside. We didn't hear them when they came, but the government came often to try and find any reason to shut down the orphanage, because they knew that they're Christian and they're teaching the children, like, about Jesus and stuff. So they look for every reason to shut them down. I've heard about them like stealing like forms, and then asking them for the forms, like, you have to like
Oh,
show us
wow.
these forms, but they had already stolen them. And if they didn't have them, like they would take the children away. They've tried to steal children from the orphanage, like straight up just go in and take children and run away. Like they've tried a whole bunch of stuff to just try to shut down this orphanage and, get the kids out of there. But every time God like comes through with like some miracle. And it's just like, I heard a lot of the stories, and I'm not going to talk about all of them, but the one firsthand that I had was when these government officials showed up, we didn't know it. The only person who knew it was the person who ran the orphanage.
Mm.
So we're upstairs in the upstairs room talking about Jesus. So like 60 kids, and the windows are wide open. you know, like they're big windows too, and it's not like very high off the ground.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the people comes up and they're like, "Hey, like you guys need to hide because if they find you in here, this orphanage is going to get shut down." So we went and hid in a room, and after a while, the guy comes up and he's like, "Okay, they went away, and I just want to tell you like this awesome testimony."
Mm.
And he says, "When I went down to greet them, the first thing they said when they greeted me was, 'That is some really beautiful music that's playing up in that upper room.'" And the crazy thing was, there was no music at all. There was no music. It was just us talking about Jesus to the kids. And if they would have had any suspicion, if they would have came up and came looking for us and found us, like it would have been over.
Wow.
But like, we believe that like God like sent his angels and this heavenly music was like playing that these government officials heard and they thought it was beautiful and they asked a couple of questions and they went away.
Wow.
And we're getting chills just talking about it,
Yeah, I see why.
Yeah. So
yeah. Wow.
that was something that shoved over my theological shelf. I encountered a lot there. There's crazier things I could tell you about, but I'm not going to talk about it now because,
Sure.
for time purposes. But
yeah.
Just everything I encountered in this country, and especially there, kind of showed me that I had been putting God in a box. I was like, God, you're all powerful, but you can only do these things, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it. But really, God can do anything. It doesn't mean he will do everything. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that we should go seeking a commodity from him, as if healing or tongues or anything like that is a commodity that God offers to us. It's not. These miraculous things that God does, they all have a purpose. And that's every time I've encountered it, it's all been about changing somebody's life or changing somebody's heart or, something, for the growth of his kingdom, the benefit of his kingdom. And it's just awesome. So yeah,
that's cool.
Little story there.
So I'll ask you this question too as we close out here.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so common for, I think what I've written here is it's so common for people to go to a very like empowering worship service, or whatever it is, or they meet a missionary and they hear some of the stories, and they walk away like, oh, I'm going to be a missionary.
Yeah.
But often I feel like the follow through in that is so lacking because it's like wasn't really your calling. You just got really emotional about it.
Yeah.
So how do you parse between this is an actual calling and this is just an emotional feeling? So it's like, how do you determine that being a long-term missionary like that, living this type of lifestyle, how do you determine if that's for you or not?
So one of the things that I did to help myself figure that out, because it is a big question that you have to ask yourself, and I still ask myself that question. It's important to just keep asking yourself, is this what God is asking me to do right now with my life?
Yeah.
Because even if you are called to the mission field, God could have you there for a short time to teach you something, and then that could change, So one of the things I did to help myself figure it out at first was when I was trying to decide what countries I wanted to visit for the kind of like the immersion trip sort of idea. I had a choice between a group of countries that like there was a reason for me to go there, like they were on my bucket list,
You felt like a desire to go there.
Like there was already a desire to go there, like a knowledge about the countries. There was already a knowledge about the people and the language. And there was already like, I had like a person I was interested in dating that lived in one of those countries. So like I had a reason to go there.
Yeah.
Like beyond just missions. And I took and then there was another set of countries which I hadn't heard about any of them except for one. I had only heard about one of the countries and I didn't know anything about it. And this set of countries, I had no connections. There was none of my friends were going to be on the team. Like there was no reason for me to go besides this is a missional, like, this is like a short-term trip, to experience like these countries, the kind of ministry of these countries. And I backed away from the countries that I had a connection to, and I said, okay, not this time. Which I had done that a lot, actually. I had a lot of opportunities to go to that country, and God kind of shut the door on me, which is good, because I didn't need to go there yet.
Yeah.
But these other countries I had no connection to, I was like, I'm going to go here, because if I go here and I can, and this feels, and I don't know how to describe this. It would really show me, like, is this for me? If I'm going to a place where, the only reason I'm going is for exposure to the international missions, and that's the only reason, the only connection. And when I went there, I had the time of my life, and I made so many friends, and I fell in love with all those countries that I went to, in Central Asia. And now I'm working with them again, or I've worked with them again for 6 months, those same people. And they want me to come back for a longer time, which is an amazing feeling, and but of course I prayed about it too. That's, I just wanted to share that part of it with you, because so many times we try to figure out if we want to do missions by going to the countries that are the most attractive to us.
Yeah.
And the real thing is that you won't know when you're going to a country that you have a connection to, like, you might find out, but it's easy to get distracted during a short-term immersion trip, because it's all fun. It's all fun and games most of the time, even like with the work, it's fun because you're with people that speak your language anyway.
Yeah.
And, like, it feels good. And, so I would encourage you to like, if you have the opportunity to go on a short-term trip to some place that you have no, like, idea, like, Lord, what is this place? Like, I would take that opportunity and just, while you're there, pray and pray and pray and ask God, like, Lord, is this a place that, you want me to be in? Is this a job that you want me to do? And, it's not the same way for every person. Prayer is a big thing, and God will open and close those doors as well. That's another factor in there. Like, there are countries that I tried to go to where God was like, no, like, you can't go there right now. Like, I haven't called you there, and then God opened the door for one of the countries for that last 6 months. All of them, like, everyone I tried was closed in Central Asia except for one, and God directed me there. And what happened was, I didn't know it. What happened was, every person from the previous team I worked with, like the native team that I worked with 2 years ago, was on the team in the city that I went to.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had no idea, so God was like, I'm going to have you go here, and, like, is missions in my future? Only God can say, I want to go back. I want to work in the mission field. I've been learning Russian, I've been preparing myself, or trying to prepare myself, but it's ultimately in God's hands in the end. And that is the mentality that I feel like we should all have, but it's hard to fall out of sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot.
That's good.
Information overload.
We'll close the tab on that.
Oh my gosh, I didn't drink as much as you did.
And here I am, finishing this bad boy. But yeah, dude, thank you so much for being here. The Noah White.
Thanks for having me on. Like, this was really cool. I've never podcasted like this before.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so
it's a good time. We like just chatting. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, and maybe in the future when I come down, we can do it again.
Oh yeah, we'll get the old Trey boy in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. So I guess to summarize, there's a lot in there. But I think to summarize, as far as what I'll say is, like, when it comes to missions work, is it seems like if that's something that you feel like you're interested in or something you're looking forward to, yeah, pursue those immersion trips.
Yeah.
It could be in the form of a short-term trip or however your church wants to label it or however whoever wants to label it. But understand going there for the sake of, is this somewhere I could see myself long term?
Yeah.
Whether that's 6 months, whether that's 10 years, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and it sounds like you're saying, try the places that don't seem that attractive to you. Maybe try those out. See where God is calling you. God's going to open and close those doors, but we need to just keep pressing forward and try to open the doors and see which one's open. But yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, anytime.
I know there's a lot in there that we can talk about and stuff that we've alluded to as well. So it's cool to hear those and yeah, just some of like real life situations as well.
Yeah.
But is there anything you want to close with?
No, not really. I just, anybody that's listening to this, I just want to encourage you that, God has got you no matter what. He will direct your life as long as you're looking to him. If you're worried about, whether you're called to missions or not, just continuously every day give it to him, and he will open the doors as you try to open, or as he will open the doors that are right for you as you try to open them. You don't know if a door is locked unless you try the knob. So, so just,
yeah. I think it's important to recognize that we're all missionaries in our own way. Some of that, I think for the vast majority of us, it looks like the people you go to work with, the people you do life with. It's a very Christianese way of saying that.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like, yeah, I don't think international missions is my calling, at least right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all right. But that seems like that was yours, at least for that time. Maybe it is again.
Yeah.
It sounds like for you, hopefully it is again.
Yeah, I hope so,
But we'll see what God has for you. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and watching, maybe if you're doing both.
And drinking.
Yeah, drink along with us. We got the old Eliot Ness. Cheers to you, Cleveland, Ohio. Check us out on Instagram if you guys want to keep up with what's going on. Sometimes we just post fun things because we're funny guys. Trey and I. That's Tipsy_Theology.
I did not know that.
And
so
if you
now I need to go follow.
Dude, you got to follow us.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I didn't
we
follow
post a
you.
whole bunch of stuff. And if you like the show, you want to support us, we would greatly appreciate that. Go to patreon.com/tipsytheology. We've got a lot of bonus content there for you guys as well, if that's what you're interested in. As far as we're gonna be offering live streams and live Q&As that are private to Patreon. And on top of that, we're going to be doing devotionals, and you'll get some merch stuff as well that we're working on. We got it in the works right now, but we got a lot of cool stuff. So check us out there. And thank you so much to Maximize Digital Media and Annie Yulee for producing this episode.
Yeah, Annie.
And we will catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah. Goodbye, guys.